I'm Taylor Knight for the Greenwich Sentinel here with Frank Farricker, the Democratic candidate for First Selectman. Thanks for sitting down with me today.
Thanks for having me.
No
Appreciate it.
problem. All right, let's get to the first question. We'll
Okay.
start off with, how would you go about helping the Board of Education close the achievement gap in Greenwich schools?
Sure, I can't say for a second that I'm an education expert. The best I can say is that I've been responsible for putting my twins, boy and a girl, through school up to 9th grade. So I've watched a little bit of what goes better. And I think the first selectman can be the most helpful in providing those essentials of everyday life that help children succeed. That means a good lunch and making sure that we reform our school lunch program to make sure that they have good and healthy lunches, and even breakfast if that's required, to make sure that hunger, I mean, I think I remember reading the first selectman said 11,000 families go hungry every night in Greenwich. And if that means children, I know that's something that keeps them restrained from being the best they can be. So I would certainly do something like that. I would help try to provide them the best available facilities that they can to succeed in. That includes making sure that our schools are free of pollutants and that they're renovated to the extent that makes them functional and workable for the children. That's just an idea of how I would help the school board help the achievement gap. You know, I want the school board to be able to do what they do best.
People think Greenwich is a very affluent town, and it is. There's also people living below the poverty line. How would you help those people?
Look, I understand this. My family was far from wealthy growing up. I lived for a few years in Adams Gardens. I mean, I've been a resident of affordable housing in Greenwich as well as a very young child, and I understand that. And I think that it's important, the work that all our charitable organizations do, Neighbor to Neighbor and such. But I think
Clearinghouse for a tasty fundraiser.
It's not, to me, in any way acceptable that somebody in the wealthiest community in Greenwich could go to bed hungry, and that somehow our government could find that to be an example of how we give people a hand up and not a hand out. That's not what we're supposed to do as a town. We're supposed to make sure that we take care of ourselves. I've been saying since the beginning, the first and most important thing that our town government can do for people is their health, safety, and welfare. And to me, being hungry it's just not acceptable.
And now back to the schools.
Sure.
Your opinion on a new stadium and facilities?
100% in favor of a new stadium. I went to Greenwich High School. I graduated in 1982. And the only significant change to that stadium is the artificial turf. And that's the model that we need to follow. A group of very dedicated Greenwich High School graduates got together and raised the $4 million to put the artificial turf down there. That was a benefit because before that, football games were a mud bowl. You couldn't play soccer or field hockey. They all had to go elsewhere. The biggest shock to me was it was a state championship game a few years ago against New Britain. And New Britain is not the wealthiest community in the state. And those people came down here and thought that we were playing on our practice field. Because New Britain has, you know, it's like I say, if they put the name of our town on their backs and they play for us, we need to put our best foot forward, put the most amount of pride, and give these kids the tools to succeed. And that means let's get rid of those bleachers that have been there since before I started high school. Let's get a new scoreboard, which was also there before I started high school. Let's not make them walk a half a mile at halftime to get dressed to walk a half a mile back in a football or a field hockey or soccer or rugby, which is now growing exponentially. To me, it's just civic pride. It's the epitome of civic pride. And I think if we get that group together, again, that got the money for the turf, we don't have to go, blow a lot of money in taxes. We have lots of other priorities. But everybody agrees. We can do this together. Other towns do it brilliantly. We can do it better than that.
Now, Eversource's new substation and trenching. How do you feel about the plan, and what changes, if any, would you kind of try and make to it?
I'm upset because the train is so far out of the station right now that it's really hard to say how we'll do it. When I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission, we were dealing very much with cell phone towers. And the same thing, Connecticut Siting Council, unelected, appointed group of people making decisions for communities based not on what the community wants, but based on what the utility says they need. And what we found back in the day was that start at the beginning. Have relationships with these folks before stuff gets out there. Work with them to make sure that the people, that we're not losing a park for a long time, that we're not having one of these strange buildings that substations build with no windows, and sometimes they paint faces of people in it to make it look like they live there. I mean, that's just not necessary. We should have been there the day they came up with the idea as partners. And I don't think we had those links, and I can make those links, and we'll be there at the beginning. So if this ever happens again, we won't be so blindsided like this.
And our last question, finally, what makes you the right choice for first selectman?
You know, I appreciate that question a lot because I really believe in this town, and I really believe in the people. I was born here and raised here. My kids are growing up here. And, you know, I see things that happen, and I say, you know, we can do so much better than that. I have the capability to have leadership skills, both in town and statewide for years. I've run successful small businesses for a long time. I think that when you have to do things better, you need to bring in somebody who knows how to do it, and I think that that's me. And I would very much appreciate the opportunity to have that chance.